Achilles, the Doom of Glory, a chronicle of the son of Thetis. Part 1. The forging of a demigod. The story of Achilles begins not with his first breath, but with a choice made by gods who had grown tired of peace. The sea nymph Thetis, radiant and proud, caught the eye of Zeus himself. Yet the fates whispered a warning: the son born of Thetis would surpass his father in power. Terrified of being overthrown, Zeus cast her aside and bound her to a mortal king, Peleus, of Thea, so that her child's greatness would be trapped in human form. Their wedding was both divine and doomed. All the gods attended, save one, Eris, the goddess of discord. Spurned, she cast into their midst a golden apple inscribed "For the fairest." The quarrel that followed would set the world on fire, but on that day, beneath divine music and mortal fear, Thetis bore a son who was neither god nor man. She named him Achilles. From the moment of his birth, the air around him felt heavy with fate. Thetis, unwilling to see her child die as mortals do, sought to make him impervious to death. Some say she anointed him with ambrosia and burned away his mortal flesh in the fire until Peleus intervened in horror. Others claim she dipped him into the dark waters of the river Styx, holding him by the heel, leaving that single place untouched, soft and mortal. Whatever the truth, the act left a mark upon both worlds. Achilles grew under the tutelage of Chiron, the wise centaur who had trained heroes before him. On the slopes of Mount Pelion, the boy learned not only how to wield a spear, but how to read the stars, to bind wounds, and to know the hearts of men. Yet there was always something restless within him, a hunger that no lesson could tame. When Thetis told him the prophecy that he would live a long life in obscurity or a short one crowned in eternal glory, he did not hesitate. He chose the fire. Thus the boy became a blade forged for a single purpose. The gods watched and waited, knowing that his death had already begun the moment he was born. Part 2. The wrath of the son of Thetis. When war came to the world, it came for him. The abduction of Helen by Paris of Troy sent kings and armies to the sea. The call went out across Greece. All who had sworn the oath of Tyndareus must take up arms to bring her back. Among them, none was more feared than Achilles. Yet Thetis, knowing what awaited him at Troy, hid him among the daughters of King Lycomedes, disguised in women's robes. But fate has no patience for disguise. Odysseus came to Skyros, bearing gifts for the maiden silks, mirrors, and one fine sword. When the disguised Achilles reached for the weapon, the deception ended. The horn was blown, and his destiny resumed its march. He joined the host at Aulis, where the wind had died and the fleet could not sail. There, the seer Calchas revealed that Artemis demanded a sacrifice, the blood of Agamemnon's own daughter. The gods required innocence before granting death to others. Achilles stood silent as Iphigenia was led to the altar, his young face hard as marble. Perhaps he learned that day that the gods' favor was built on cruelty. When the fleet at last reached Troy, the air itself seemed to shiver with prophecy. Achilles led the Myrmidons in their black armor, swift as hawks upon the plain. He struck down champions as if they were straw before a storm. Cities fell, men burned, and his name spread like a fever across the Aegean. But even heroes are slaves to pride. When Agamemnon, swollen with arrogance, seized Briseis, the captive woman Achilles had taken in war, the fragile brotherhood of the Greeks shattered. Achilles withdrew to his tent, his wrath sealed behind silence. Without him, their armies faltered. The gods watched and smiled, for they loved nothing so much as watching mortals destroy themselves. In the absence of Achilles, his dearest companion, Patroclus, could not bear to see the Greeks perish. Donning Achilles' armor, he led the Myrmidons into battle. For a fleeting hour, it seemed as if the son of Thetis had returned. But Hector, prince of Troy, met him beneath the walls and struck him down. The news reached Achilles like a spear to the heart, grief twisted into madness. He swore vengeance not only upon Hector, but upon the very gods who had allowed it. He rose from his tent like a storm made flesh. His mother brought him new armor, forged by Hephaestus himself, a thing of terrible beauty, the sun trapped in bronze. The next dawn, the plain of Troy drowned in blood. Achilles cut through men as though they were reeds in the tide. The river Scamander rose against him, choked with corpses, but he fought even the water until it recoiled. The sky dimmed, even the gods turned their faces. When he found Hector at last, the duel was swift and merciless. The prince begged for the dignity of burial. Achilles denied him. When the spear struck, it was not victory, it was annihilation. He dragged Hector's body behind his chariot, circling the walls as Troy wept. But vengeance is a brief fire, and ashes follow swiftly. That night, an old man entered the Greek camp, Priam, king of Troy, his hands trembling, his eyes hollow. He knelt before Achilles and kissed the hands that had killed his son. For a moment, even the greatest of warriors remembered that he too was mortal. Achilles wept, not for Hector alone, but for all that the world had lost in its hunger for glory. It was the only peace he would ever know. Part 3. The Fall of the Immortal Flesh. Time is the slowest weapon. Even gods grow weary, and heroes bleed beneath their armor. Thetis had warned her son that his death would come soon after Hector's. Achilles accepted it with the quiet resolve of one who has already burned away his fear. He fought on, unrelenting, until his shadow stretched long over the plain of Troy. But death is cunning. It comes not with honor, but with inevitability. Paris, who had begun this war with a stolen kiss, waited in ambush. Guided by Apollo himself, he loosed an arrow. It struck Achilles in the heel, the single place left untouched by the Styx. The one fragment of him still bound to mortality. He fell, the world seemed to hold its breath. The Myrmidons gathered around their dying king, and for the first time, fear entered their hearts. Achilles looked toward the sea, as if seeking his mother's face in the waves. No god came, no voice answered. Only the wind, whispering through the reeds, carried his name away. They burned his body on a high pyre, the flames visible even from the walls of Troy. The ashes were mixed with those of Patroclus, as he had wished, so that even in death they would not be parted. His armor was claimed by Odysseus, and later by deceit and madness, Ajax fell upon his own sword for losing it. So ended the greatest warrior of his age, not with triumph, but with silence. The war dragged on without him, a machine that no longer knew why it moved. When Troy finally burned, Achilles' ghost was said to wander the fields, restless and cold. The poets would call him immortal, but in truth, immortality is another word for torment. His name endured, yes, but names are only echoes, and echoes cannot bleed. Some say that in the underworld, Achilles rules among the shades, still clad in his shining armor. Others say he sits apart, gazing toward the distant horizon where light and darkness meet, wondering if glory was worth the cost. Perhaps that is his true punishment, to be remembered forever, but never at peace. For the gods had given him a choice, and he had chosen fire, and fire, once set, consumes everything, even the name of the one who lit it. Thus ends the chronicle of Achilles, the doom of glory. The man who outran time, defied death, and found that victory is the loneliest place in the world.